Welcome to RadioPalaciomagazine.com. We're here with candidate Jeannine Pearce. Ms. Pearce is facing off against Eric Gray in a runoff election for the Long Beach City Council seat representing the 2nd District. Good afternoon, Jeannine.
Good afternoon.
So before we get started, I just wanted to take a look at a big picture of the 2nd District. It includes parts of the Port of Long Beach, downtown, the waterfront, the beach, and of course historic residential districts and small business corridors, but it also is one of the densest and most diverse districts in the cities. Is that about right?
Absolutely.
So let's start off with what you believe are the 3 major priorities that you would like to address in your first 3 months in office.
First 3 months of office. Okay. I do want to add one more characteristic to our district, which is we have the highest life expectancy zip code in our district and the lowest life expectancy zip code in our district. So on top of being very diverse, you have to make sure that you're governing to ensure that we bridge that gap. 7-year life expectancy difference is a big deal to me. So
all in one same council district?
All in one council district. So you've got high rises on Ocean Boulevard, and then you have really dense substandard housing off of 10th Street. And so, number one priority for me at the core of no matter whether it's a policy issue, a discussion, is making sure that we're representing the entire district. One thing that the entire district struggles with is parking. And while it's not the funnest thing to talk about, it is something that has a huge impact on people's lives, whether it's driving for 45 minutes trying to find parking, wasting gas. As someone who's been a lifelong renter living in that district for, going on 10 years, being a mom, I know the challenges of not having parking, having a kid, having groceries. And so it is a quality of life issue. And so tackling some of that, I've talked about 100 parking spots in 100 days. We need to make sure that we are being proactive in our parking plan and not stepping back and saying, let's keep studying. People have been studying it for a long time. We need action. And so that would be a number one priority. Number 2 is making sure that everybody feels like they have access to the council office, making sure that they feel like government is stepping up to represent them. Fortunately, we had 16% voter turnout in our April election. We were expecting closer to 12. So we are happy about our turnout, but we want to make sure that we continue to engage residents and not just neighborhood associations.
Can I just stop you for a second
Yeah.
here? Because the fact that with 16%
Is a good thing.
is a good thing.
Quote unquote a good thing, yeah.
Is that where we've sunk to now?
Unfortunately, I helped start Long Beach Rising, which was focused on trying to get voter turnout to increase. And when you have people that feel like government's not working for them, that they don't have access to it, that they can complain about parking all day and not feel like something's done, or they're working 2 and 3 jobs, it's hard for them to be engaged. And our election cycles are also a challenge, but we won't step into that. It's a long-term plan.
Okay.
But 3 is making sure that our communities are safe and clean. And so making sure that as we're building an organization of residents that are engaged, we're increasing safety, making sure that we're connecting nonprofits with residents and our police, that we're really trying to tackle some of the safety issues in our district, not by over-policing, but by engaging and organizing residents. I'm the only candidate that has a community organizing background, and that is the skill set that I think is going to help change some of the challenges that we have in the district. So,
let me zoom in on a couple of issues, one of which we were talking about in terms of public safety. You hear a lot of talk about we need to put a lot of more cops on the street, which is part of what Measure A and B are about. And I'm just kind of curious, do you think the only answer is more police?
absolutely not. And I never have. But I do have, my husband's grandfather was a police officer. And so I know that there are a lot of police officers that are doing their best that they feel like they can do. That when our staffing is low, it impacts their effectiveness. Also, if they're working overtime, it affects their response that they might have. Long Beach, unfortunately, and it's something that the city doesn't want to talk about, we're number 4 in police shootings in the nation. And that's a problem. And will staffing up help that? It might. It might relieve some of the stress and the tension. But what's more important is investing in organizations like CCEJ, investing in parks, making sure that, and investing in youth, making sure that kids that might not graduate high school or might graduate high school but not go into college have a pathway. I was one of those kids that almost didn't graduate high school. And so I know, because I was one of those troubled kids. I know that if you don't feel like there's hope, anything can happen. And so the number one thing we can do when you talk about petty theft, which is happening in my neighborhood, skyrocketed. When kids don't have a place to go, there's a challenge. When people don't trust the police, there's a challenge. And so we have a lot of cultural shifts to make in the city. Do we need to staff up? Yeah, we do. Because police need to be able to get out of their car and have a conversation with somebody. And right now, they're not even able to respond to normal calls. And so it's a balance. But as we talk about A and B, as we talk about staffing up, we have to say this is a great opportunity to say, yes, we're going to give you the funds to staff up, but here's the stipulations. And that's going to take some work. It's not going to be done easily.
Just follow up on that. One of the other issues that's come up around public safety is the question of Prop 47, and that it's to blame for the increases in crime.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Well, I did a lot of research on this because I was a huge advocate of Prop 47. I was a community organizer in Long Beach that led our paid campaign. I partnered with the volunteers. I worked very closely at the state level. And so I know this policy very well. And the intention is great. It's meaningful. Unfortunately, the state hasn't rolled out some of those funds yet. And so there are some challenges. Is it to blame for crime increase? No. When you look nationally, and this is what people continue to forget, when you look nationally at crime rates, they're rising all over the nation. It's not Prop 47. And the idea that people want to sit here and blame Prop 47 for it, it's unfortunate. I think it's short-sighted. We can still improve Prop 47 without trying to point fingers and say, this is the population that's increasing crime.
Right. The implementation of $15 an hour minimum wage and its potential impact on small business, and the question, of course, even by the time it gets to 2021, 22, of course, the statewide, the state minimum wage increase as well. And whether the questions become about potential impact on small business, and also, on the other side, whether there's even going to be enough in a town that's seeing increasing rents and the gentrification that's going on.
Yeah.
So, as a council person, how are you going to balance both sides there?
Yeah.
The impacts on small business and the reality that $15 an hour by the time we get to 2021, 22
Right.
may not even be enough.
Right, exactly. I mean, number one, I think that the small businesses, when you look at some of the research, and there's research on both sides, say that small businesses are the number one employer in any city. And so it's really important to me as a council member that we continue to support those small businesses, everything from permitting and process and how they open their doors to keeping those doors open. I was supportive of 15, and I was supportive of a path to 15. So not 15 tomorrow, a path. I would have liked to have seen the path be shorter, a shorter path. But I think, we have to be able to do some research and some studies quickly to be able to say what's the impact. And we need small businesses to be organized, to sit down at the table and say, here's my threshold, here's what I can handle, and be involved in creating those policies. It's been great that the labor movement and that workers have been doing that work for a very long time. And I think one of the challenges with passing this wage is that small businesses weren't at that same level of organization. Which is one of the reasons why I helped start the Long Beach Business Association, which is just small businesses. And so as a council member, I would want to make sure that we're working with those businesses, but also that no worker is left behind. We know that every dollar of a living wage increase or minimum wage increase is $3 back in the community, just $3 being spent down at the local place. So a hotel worker from the Hilton, I see him every day at Portfolio. He used to not be able to do that, but he can now. And so it's a hard balance, but it's just knowing that the sky hasn't fallen. 147 cities passed the minimum wage before. The sky didn't fall. Those cities are thriving and doing really well.
Let me move on to the last issue. The sales tax increase, measures A and B, are up for on the ballot. Excuse me, on June the 7th. So, if it does get passed, and you're on the city council for the 2nd District, how will you ensure that the money raised is going to be spent on the items that the city says it will be spent on? Because that's one of the
Right.
criticisms
Right.
of the anti-A and B people.
Yeah. I mean, I think, one, to clarify the reason, it's very hard to pass at, 3 or the other threshold, yeah.
I think it's 2/3.
2/3. It's hard to pass anything at 2/3. More or less the word tax, even though it's going back to reinvest in our community. And so, I think that our current mayor and council have done a great job about already mapping out. And so it's not a question of let's wait and see if it gets passed. Last week they did a study session. 90% of the funds are earmarked, in their minds to be spent on infrastructure, which is really important to me because when we talk about greening our city, we can't stop at our port. We have to talk about, cement. We have to talk about our waterways. We have to be able to really invest the best green technology in those areas. And so this is a great opportunity to do that. I think that because they've already started mapping that out, that voters should feel confident that the majority of that money is going to go where we want it to go. I think having B is really important, a rainy day fund. We had a previous mayor that, wanted to slash staffing, that, we didn't invest a lot in our community. We didn't invest a lot in infrastructure. And so, unfortunately, we are where we are, where we have to all of a sudden try to do this together. I think there's going to be a lot of job creation out of it, a lot of opportunity for youth employment, for local hire. I encourage people to start thinking about this as an opportunity because it's a lot of money. It's $5 a month for somebody, essentially $5.60 a month for the average person. And so would I pay that to make sure my sidewalks are paved, my streets are paved? Absolutely. And so I think that the more that residents can be engaged, there's a lot of meet and greets with the mayor, there's a lot of people involved. Get engaged, organize, and make sure that there's a voice there in those meetings,
What happens if it doesn't get approved?
Then we are going to struggle. The city is going to struggle. Our budget has not grown with the cost of inflation in over 10 years. There will not be more police. There will be less police. And that is an issue for safety. Fire is a huge one. You talk about how many firefighters have been cut. We had firefighters writing checks back to the city in their last contract negotiation. People that haven't received a raise in forever, that risk their lives every day. They have 100% higher chance of getting cancer than anybody else in our city, and they're not able to, balance that out. And so it's really important that we be able to invest in this, not only for, I think, our fire, but our infrastructure as well. Our libraries is another opportunity for us to make sure that those libraries are open all the time, that we have the best facilities possible. So,
Tell us one standout difference that we might not know between you and your opponent, Eric Gray.
That we might not know. I feel like the biggest difference between us might be our paths to this decision. I grew up extremely poor. I have a story that someday will be in a book. I was adopted really young. I knew my biological family growing up. I lost my mother and my grandmother to domestic violence by the time I was 14. I lost my adopted mom in 2009. And so I moved out of my mom's house at 16. I've worked every day since. I know the struggle that it is to put food on the table, to make big decisions. And that brought me to community organizing. It took me 10 years to get my degree. I paid for it all myself the whole way. I'm still paying for it. The hit piece on me is Jeannine Pearce has student debt. I'm like, oh no. And so I had to make a lot of decisions, big decisions that I had to make on my own. I didn't have a family to support me in that sense. And so when I came to Cal State, I was fortunate to, be in the sociology department. I graduated there in 2009 and had the opportunity to get involved in the community. And so I have a skill set that's very different from Eric's skill set. I had to bring lots of people together that didn't trust each other, that didn't have the same goals. Their heart was all in the right place, but to get to consensus with people is the biggest challenge in city council. You've got to work with the chamber, you've got to work with labor, you've got to work with residents. So I don't see any of that in his background, and that has been what brought me to this place that I'm at today. I'm very passionate about it. I care deeply, and I'm true to myself with whoever I talk to. I will always say, here's where I am, and it's up to you guys to educate me and tell me if maybe I'm missing something, maybe there's a different way, a better way, but that's how I work. And so I think my seat on council will look very different than somebody that doesn't have that background,
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much, but would you like to make one last brief closing statement?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, thank you for that. It's been quite a journey, kind of pinch myself every day thinking about, should I do this? Am I the right person? What type of person runs for council? I see myself as a community candidate, grassroots candidate that has always fought for economic justice, social justice, equity. And I'm really thrilled to say that no matter what the outcome is in June, when we look at the numbers from April and who voted, and you've got Ocean Boulevard, high rises, you've got Alamitos Beach, Rose Park, and the areas around AOC 7. The precincts that had the highest number of voter turnout were our Latino precincts in AOC 7. And that's something that a lot of people said couldn't happen. And so the fact that I believe our campaign, we work with hotel workers, we work with people that are the backbone to our economy, decided to go out and vote in an April election that they typically don't vote in, says a lot about the campaign, not me, but the campaign, and the fact that it's a campaign of the people. And so I'm really thrilled to say that, because I don't think that that's happened in this district in a really, really, really long time, if ever. And so it's just been a great journey to work with everybody, and I really look forward to continuing to, organize and push our city forward in the right direction.
You want to tell us your website and
Yes.
if people want to get more information?
Yeah, definitely. It's JeanninePearce.com, JeanninePearce.com. And we're open 7 days a week. We've got everything from addressing envelopes to talking to voters to doing door hangers. It's a fun place to be. So we'd love to have people down.
Well, thank you again for joining us on RadioPalaciomagazine.com.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.